Betsy, what was our July 10th board poll? He says person, was that just in naming Elizabeth?
That's when I called each one of you on the phone.
Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Missouri Western State University Board of Governors. We have a full participation today. We have 5 of the governors are here in person with our social distancing and wearing our masks as per the university protocol with that. So we do empathize with our students and faculty and staff of dealing with this on a daily basis, and appreciate everyone's cooperation in dealing with an incredibly difficult situation for all of us. Even those that are not wearing the mask, or the Missouri Western mask, we're wearing it to start with, but I very much do empathize with those who have to talk a lot with those, the breathable ones, at least for me, is the way to go. I do have my my other one here that I have wore to all my other meetings this morning, where I didn't have to speak as much with that. Okay, so we have 5 governors here, and we have Governor Smith and Governor Mason are both on Zoom. So I am proud to say that we have complete representation, and I think that speaks a lot to this board and to the dedication and commitment that our full participation has been tremendous with that. We start, I'd like to see if there is a motion to approve the minutes of our June 25th, 2020 Finance Committee meeting, and actually the board meeting from that date, and the special board meeting of July 7th, 2020. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Moved by Governor Landis. Do I have a second? Seconded by Governor Schoonover. Is there any discussion on those? Hearing none, I'll call the vote on that. All those in favor of approving those minutes say aye.
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 The opposed say nay. Hearing none, the minutes from the Finance Committee meeting and the board meetings of June 25th and July 7th are approved as presented. We also had we hired Elizabeth Kennedy as our interim president. Was done by a board poll telephonically on July 10th, 2020, and that that motion was approved unanimously in our board poll. But as per our protocol, I do need a motion to ratify our July 10th, 2020 board poll, in which we named Elizabeth Kennedy as the interim president of Missouri Western. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion by Governor Eversole. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Governor Lichty. Is there any discussion? Now I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of ratifying the board poll of July 10th, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Hearing none, that board poll is unanimously ratified. We have in our board books reports of the vice presidents, but with this being the start of the academic year, we do want to hear from our vice presidents with that. With our circumstances, a little bit of last minute things, and I do want to say appreciation for the staff for moving us at the last minute. We had to move out of our standard room over in Bloom because of some air conditioning issues or lack thereof, and I am pleasantly surprised, but I shouldn't be, because our staff does such a great job that they set this up in such a short period of time, and everyone seems to have made it here. So I very much appreciate that. But for our first report, I'd like to ask our provost, Dr. Doug Davenport, to come forward.
Good afternoon to members of the Board of Governors and guests. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My written comments, my report to the board corresponds with Section B, page 22. My oral remarks this afternoon, I wanted to, first of all, in reference to the beginning of the semester, what an interesting time we are in. And I think as I was around on campus during the first day of camp, of our campus opening, I was struck by the number of students who I did not see. I guess that's they were here, but they were not physically present at the time that I was walking around. So it was a little surreal, I guess is the way I would put it. But I did have the opportunity to assist with move-in on last Friday afternoon, and I just want to say thanks to our student affairs staff and others who volunteered to help with move-in, because that was done appropriately. Students were assisted. They drove up and got their keys and then went to the residence halls. It was well done. And so, and that was just a microcosm of what I saw all around campus as we have made significant and laborious preparations for the return of our students to campus. And so I'm pleased with what I have observed. I appreciate the cooperation of faculty, staff, and students in every respect, because we all know that the precautions and protocols that we have put into place are essential for us to be able to have a safe environment. And so I'm grateful for that. Not without its challenges and difficulties, to be sure, but I would say that overall, we have done an excellent job of being prepared and welcoming students back. I would also like to just update you on a couple of things. One, our Center for Workforce Development. We are now going to be an authorized testing center for some certifications that will, I think, be of great assistance to our regional employers, who can now send employees to take tests to be certified. And that's through our provider as well. And just, I think that's just another step that we're taking towards ensuring that we are meeting the needs of our region in this area. An update as far as curriculum, I would let you know that the Bachelor of Science in Law degree was approved by the Coordinating Board for Higher Education. That's wonderful. So we are getting started with that degree as we move forward. And related to that, the Higher Learning Commission approved our teach-out plans, which that's a significant thing. They certainly could have taken a different direction that could have resulted in us having to make some additional work, but they approved our teach-out plan, so that is wonderful. And I just have to say, my hat is off to Interim President Kennedy for the work that she did in leading that process, along with Elaine Bryant and her staff, for all of the work they have been doing to help each student have a teach-out plan for their degree, which, when you're talking about more than 600 students, the enormity of that task cannot be appropriately measured. So I am just very grateful for all the work that is being done. We have partnerships with Park University, University of Missouri, Kansas City, and Missouri State. We have our first 2 students who are taking courses that are through the partnership. And so that's the first opportunity for our students to be served through our partners in order to complete a teach-out degree. And finally, I would just like to point out that we have a couple of new, new members of my team. One is not actually new, but she's in a new role, and that is the interim vice provost, which is Dr. Elise Hepworth, formerly serving as the faculty senate president last year, and of course, director of choral studies on our campus. I'm very excited. She has hit the ground running as of last week, and I'm just excited for her to take on that role. And then within student affairs, our student development director has just recently come to us, Justin McMillan. And so I know Hannah Piaski is excited to have an additional support person in that area. We've been very, I'd say, thinly staffed in a lot of areas, and student affairs has certainly benefited from having this new hire. So with that, I will be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Dr. Davenport, where are our student enrollment numbers at right now? I know we had, estimated and projected a lot
Yep.
of things, and have seen some kind of real time on updates with that. But if you
Yes.
could just bring the board up to speed of where we're at in our numbers.
Absolutely. So I think the best indicator is our student credit hours. We know that headcount is down to some degree. It's somewhere around 10% overall. And again, we're first day of classes in the 4th week census date, which is the official date. You always have some movement there. But overall student credit hours, roughly 9% there. So this is far better than what could have been expected. I know our incoming freshman class is down much more than we would have liked, but it's not inconsistent with what other institutions are seeing around the state. So we believe that if these numbers hold, this will be a positive thing for us in terms of our student experience and, of course, the finances.
And with you mentioning the freshman numbers down, but conversely to that, our retention of our upperclassmen is, if you could talk about that a little bit, because that's tremendous. It's so much better than historically has
Yes.
been, and I know a lot of that had to do with administration and faculty really following up with students, and that's something I believe you deserve, and your staff deserve a lot of credit for. And if you could talk about how we've done better in that area.
Absolutely. So we've gone the old-fashioned route of getting on the phone, getting on text messages, which is not so old-fashioned, but personal communication, reaching out to those students who were able to register in terms of they had no holds on their account, but simply were not registered, and talking to them and saying, are you planning to come back? And what we found was many students, the uncertainty of COVID created a damper in terms of their decision-making process, which our students tend to make decisions a little bit later anyway. So it exacerbated that situation. But I'm pleased to say that when we started, we had over 1,000 students who were not registered and yet had no holds on their account. So they should have been registered, and we reduced that number well over half before it was all said and done, and that contributed to this. We also did follow-ups with students who had holds on their account that were financially related, and sought to encourage them, make a financial plan, get registered, and if you are registered, we don't want to drop your schedule. And all of those efforts, with regard to the students who had a schedule but had not made a financial arrangement, we started that list with 1,000 students on it. We wound up dropping the schedule of 152 students. From there, about 50 of them re-registered immediately after making a plan. So in terms of the numbers of students that ultimately we have maintained and retained, that truly is a testimony to the work of our faculty and staff in this effort. And you're absolutely right. We have offset the loss of new incoming students with better efforts at retaining students. And that actually is a part of our focus as we move forward. We have to make retention and student success a priority and a focus for everything we do, because every student matters. That's just the point that we have to constantly keep in front of us.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yeah.
Debbie.
Oh, I'm sorry, I can't see behind you. There you are.
Need to unmute. Yep, we have
Can you tell us how the workforce development courses are doing, the ones that are being offered?
So I don't know. We
Okay.
just launched that. That was, July 1, we launched it. So I'm not certain how many enrollees we have had at this point, and I apologize. We'll find that data out.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Davenport. Next, we'll hear from Dr. Josh Looney on athletics, or lack thereof.
Unfortunately.
Yes, you'll hear from athletics as well as a bit of advancement in recreation services as well as that's fallen under our umbrella a bit recently. Yes, I'll go off sheet a little bit. So your packet is dated August 10th is when we had to submit that to you, and much has changed in our world since August 10th, and obviously the headline being the postponement and movement of our fall sports to at least January 1st, 2021, and more realistically in the spring semester. And so for us, that includes football, women's soccer, volleyball, and cross country. And obviously some devastating conversations for our student athletes, many who were on campus already in that week prior. But, I'd take from that, and make no mistake, nobody in our department's feeling sorry for ourselves. That's not our culture. That's not the way athletes are built. They're built to be resilient. They're built to adapt and pivot. And that's probably been the best thing in the recovery of that initial news, to see the athletes do that. Within 30 minutes of having a difficult conversation with our women's soccer team, before that went public, we broke out of the Hall of Fame room in the stadium, and they went to their workout 30 minutes later, all of them. So no one skipped on that. And then the next morning when we opened up at 5 a.m., no one missed a workout there either. So that's the type of attitude you're seeing in our department, led by our student athletes, but obviously that starts with our coaches and staff as well. And wanted to really give you a glimpse into what our summer has been, because I think we've spent 5 months preparing to play in September of 2020 and felt really good about giving it a full go, and some massive national changes shifted with the NCAA that forced us to make some alterations. But our medical staff, working with Dr. Juan Dominguez, Mosaic Life Care, public health officials, were able to put some strict protocols that continue to be in place for us, but really allowed us to open up our summer strength and conditioning to about a quarter of our student athletes, primarily football, but we had student athletes of most every sport back here this summer. We opened that on June 8th, and we're able to continue without any pause up until August 14th, when the summer period concluded. And I think that as you look at news waves and those types of things are being tracked, we have an unchallengeable medical authority in Dr. Dominguez and Mosaic, and we did not have any COVID clusters or things that would cause us to pause in athletics throughout this summer. And I think that's a testament to our medical staff and others, and really our student athletes, in totally adapting and shifting. And some ways that we're able to approach that, and just of what COVID looks like differently. Typically in the summer, you have 2 strength and conditioning groups. You have one at 6 a.m. and one usually in the evening. It works around schedules. And if you have 150 athletes there, 80 of them are in the morning, and maybe 70 of them are in the evening. Well, we went to smaller groups that were of 10 to 15, so we could socially distance and go through. And so our staff opened the facility at 4:30 in the morning every day this summer, and we went on the hour every hour, 5 a.m., 6 a.m., all the way till 5 p.m. for that last session, to make sure we could get everyone in. With lack of camps and conferences and ability to have junior recruiting days, which is the lifeblood of a football program, to invite your top prospects in. Typically, you have 50 to 60 in on a single day, and you meet their families. We still did that, but we had to do it within groups of no more than 3 or 4. And we didn't want them to cross over with our current athletes. So those were typically 6 to 8 p.m. individual sessions, much like you'd recruit a basketball team. But we did it for football. And we were able to get close to top 100 prospects from the junior day that were here. So a lot of shifting, a lot of extra hours, but I think that's that's what we're having to adapt to. And very proud of our medical staff and our coaches for being able to continue to work, but doing it safely and be able to be in a place that we're proud of. Our focus now really is on retention and mental health, socialization, structure, academic accountability, those things. But the lack there of sports, I do want to be clear with our fall sports. It's really flipping the mindset. Spring football, so to speak, will begin here. Our plans are August 31st, and that's when our athletes will go back to their 20-hour practice weeks. Now, those practices will look much different, and they'll actually be longer because we'll divide up teams into much more individual groupings. But those things don't stop. The team meetings, the weight training, the study halls, the community engagement, all of those are still ongoing. It's just caused us a different way to approach that in the season. And we're set for a pretty busy spring when there's a lot of teams playing at once. Recruiting's been a different perspective for us as well. Typically, fall sports very heavy in recruiting December, January, February, once their seasons are over. With virtual learning throughout high schools and some states moving their football seasons, volleyball seasons to the spring, we're seeing them want to visit campus early. So September and October will be big recruiting months for those fall sports. And it will be similar to how we handled this summer, where it will be one-on-one individual families coming. We probably aren't in a perspective where we'll host 100 prospects on a single day like we've done in the past. And so those are things our coaches are working on, and certainly proud of them for adapting and continuing to move forward. One of our big personnel pieces right now is our women's soccer search. You talk about a group that's gone through a lot. In 45 days, they've been through 2 coaches and been told their season's been delayed until spring. And that's a group that has a record number of student athletes, 35 on the roster, more than we've ever had. Fortunately, we have strong senior leadership on that team, led by Mackenzie O'Neill, who's served a number of national roles on behalf of Missouri Western and the MIAA, and serving on task force for COVID at the NCAA. But they want some structure. They want to know who their leader is. So we're still actively in that search. We had identified Coach Edwards' replacement in late July, and unfortunately, Coach Aaron Avila from Newman, an institution here in the MIAA, he had stepped away about 10 days after that to do some health concerns, and wish him well. And we've continued on that search. So that's one that we feel like we're closing in on, and we'll make sure they have leadership for those 35 women that have had an even more different first week of school without a head coach in place. We do have a coach right now, on assistant side, Leah Stringer. She is part of our restructuring. She's a split position. She works in the residence hall as well as an assistant soccer coach, and she's putting a lot of hours and has done a tremendous job. She's only been on campus about a month and a half now, and she's held that group together, and so she deserves a lot of acclaim there as well. I'm pleased to report our enrollment for athletics. We'll welcome a record number of student athletes to campus. We have this fall. And obviously women's lacrosse plays a piece in that, and the 24 or 25 athletes Coach Benzing has been part of. But we also asked our coaches, knowing the uncertainties of COVID, to expand their rosters where appropriate. And really three programs really stepped up, and most all of our programs will have increased roster size this year. But football, it was able to increase their roster size to about 135. Typically they're about 120. Baseball's at about 50. They've been around 40. And our women's soccer program that is typically in the mid to high 20s is at 35, and you have others. So appreciative to our coaches for doing that. And I think that's a great thing for our campus life, as well as just where we are in athletics and some uncertainty. Also pleased on some good news, and I'll put in a plug here on the fundraising side. Brett Easley wouldn't let me get away without. He's our senior associate AD for external relations, who's had to pivot a ton. And right now we're in the middle of our biggest fundraiser of the year, which is our YWCA MWSU charity golf outing and fundraiser. And it's totally virtual this year. You can text GRIFs to 72727 through the end of Monday to look at some great auction events. But proud to say we have a full golf field. So that piece, which is a critical piece to us, will tee off on Monday. But right now, the auction last year was our record year, just over $33,000 on the auction piece. And we're about $200 short of that record right now with 4 or 5 days to go. And that's without Kenny Chesney. That's without the Clark Hunt suite for the Chiefs. And so we're saying, why haven't we gone digital and virtual this entire time on the auction? So we'll probably keep that piece, but more important, we ended our year with it at 1.2 million, 1.24 million in fundraise for athletics. And that doesn't include concessions or camps or endowed scholarships or that's the real money that is coming in from external donors through the foundation. And that's obviously a critical piece right now as we deal with football season alterations, as well as our financial commitment to the university as we look to continue to reduce our reliance on the general fund by at least $500,000 or more. And so that was a critical first step and feeling a really good spot there, and we'll continue on the fundraising side. Quickly want to hit on recreation services. Emily Ludwig has done a tremendous job. She's director of recreation services in our Baker Fitness Center. And she was working solo throughout the summer and incredibly hard to make sure that the reopening went smoothly, similar to bringing athletes back to campus, making sure we had the protocols in place, rearranging at Baker Fitness Center and all of the safety equipment for students to return. They returned Monday, and it's been flowing very well there, and she deserves a lot of credit. She's also been able to safely reopen our pool, which the high school swim teams in the community utilize for practice, and they've been able to utilize that. So Emily's done a tremendous job on her reopening plans. Advancement on that side of the house, really just starting to interact with that group over the last few weeks, but gearing up for Founders Day here, and really what does a homecoming look like without a football game? And I can tell you we're not going to cancel it, but we're going to make some alterations, but we will celebrate in some way, shape, or form and engage our alumni. So with that report, I will pause for any questions you might have.
I have a question, Lee.
Go ahead, Debbie.
Yeah, so Dr. Looney, how does the delay of our fall season conflict with our spring programs?
That's a great question. I think logistically, I think there'll be some changes. I don't expect us. I expect us to treat cross country and football probably a bit differently than volleyball and soccer. Cross country, from the standpoint, it's going to be really tough to squeeze in a cross country season because those athletes are also indoor track and field and outdoor track and field distance runners. So they'll probably more than likely not have a cross season, or it may just be a conference championship. Football, it's a whole other set of challenges. Playing a full 10 or 11 game season without a championship in the spring would be challenging from a health and safety perspective. Someone were to get injured, whether it's an ACL or a break, you would worry about their ability to return for 21 in time. And so that will be a lot of strategy. There's also eligibility concerns we're still working with. Volleyball and soccer probably a little more feasible to play more games. So a lot of questions, but I'd tell you from a logistics standpoint, Debbie, if it comes down to can we staff it, that's a job of myself and our staff to make sure we can. We are not going to take anything away from our spring athletes, but if there's ability to give seasons to our fall athletes, we owe them that. And it's not as easy at our level as just give them an extra year of eligibility and keep their scholarship going. We have a lot that are paying 70, 80, 90% more of their tuition bill that are scheduled to graduate in May. And they have a big decision to make of, do I continue to go and pay for more education, or do I start my career? And a lot of them have been very high performers for us. And so we owe them to have some sort of spring season. And what that looks like, the MIAA will begin those discussions here next week, actually. And so hopefully we'll have more before October 1st. That's also when we'll be making our decision. The CEOs have tasked us with giving a recommendation to them on basketball season. I'm confident at this point that that we'll be playing a full basketball schedule. I just don't know when that may start. And so hopefully that optimism will flow and continue with basketball.
Thank you. And Dr. Looney, I just have to say, I hope you know how much we appreciate your can-do attitude and your optimistic outlook, and everybody on your staff doing everything you can for our students and putting them first. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you. And the community support and support of the board has helped fuel our athletes and our coaches as well to continue with that attitude moving forward.
Plug the auction, but I want to plug it even more. kind of expect Brett Easley to come through the door, you know, or bust, maybe rappel out of the ceiling or something and have a Facebook Live. I know he seems to be everywhere promoting it, and that's
He's
fantastic.
done an awesome job.
That is
pivoting, yeah.
fantastic. That goes through Monday, and that follows with the directive that we have given to various departments, certainly athletics, of where we have to watch our dollars as much as possible. And this is athletics raising money from the private sector. I am okay to be outbid on things. I've got a few right now that I'd really like to have because there's some great deals out there, tons of Chiefs memorabilia out there that you are not going to find anyplace else. This is not things that you're going to find typically online, or if you can go shopping, they're not going to be in a typical storefront. There are some really, really cool Super Bowl things on there. There's some fantastic golf trips with that. There's all kinds of wonderful Missouri Western experiences there, and there's great deals on a lot of that. But even more importantly, it's helping a cause that's important to all of us. It's a way to show our spirit as a community, as supporters of this university. It doesn't cost a thing to go on and bid. If you bid, it costs you, but you can go and look at the website. You can go and check out all the items, and it doesn't cost you anything. If you accidentally hit the button, then it may cost you, but you're still
We
going
had
to
a
get.
few people do that accidentally that we had to roll it back. But yeah, we were worried about losing Brett to QVC after his live stream. And
Yes.
I think you might need to be his co-host with that. So I appreciate the plug. But yes, text GRIFs to 72727. It'll at least give you access to scroll. And if you go to any of our social media outlets, you can see some items, and we'll walk you through that as well. But there's some really neat things there, absolutely. And some experience items, especially for golfers.
And there's fantastic items on there. So thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right. Thank you, Dr. Looney. Now from Marketing and Communications, we will hear from Jomel Nichols. I'm sad to say I don't know that we're going to be hearing from Jomel many more times, so we do appreciate and we'll listen intently because we're going to miss you ultimately, but we're very happy for your retirement.
Well, thank you very much. And good afternoon, everyone, and I hope you're all doing well. The report of the Marketing Communications team can be found under tab B on page 36. Obviously, we've been very busy, just like the rest of campus, getting ready to welcome students back. One of our main projects over the summer was to completely revamp the COBA web page. It had been set up, of course, to have information and resources as we pivoted to online learning, but over the summer we shifted to what fall was going to look like and needed to revamp that completely so that we had information, resources, guidelines, and protocols to explain what campus was going to look like when our students and faculty came back this fall. And as you can imagine, that's an ongoing project, and we do update that almost daily as we have more information to share with our campus community. Another project that kept us very busy this summer is our admissions recruiting materials packets, which you all have in front of you. I don't know if you've had a chance to take a look and open those up, but with all of the changes that we've had this past semester, it was reassuring to actually work on something that's familiar, and this is something that we do every year, is work on this months-long collaboration between the marketing team and the admissions team. And we start this process in January, and it is these finished printed pieces are the culmination of a 6-month-long process where we work very closely with admissions. And I just wanted to, because this is such an important part of what we do and an important part of what admissions does in recruiting, I wanted to just acknowledge those folks that are involved in this. On my team, Steve Van Dyke and Kendi Scudder are our creative services team, and they're the ones that make sure that our materials will stand out amongst the competition, which is critically important right now. On the content side of things, Diane Holtz, before she retired, and Aubrey Carpenter took up the reins after she retired, are my detail-oriented content folks, and they made sure that the information was updated and accurate. And then we worked very closely on both the design and content side with Kim Sigrist and Carol Cervera over in the admissions team to make sure they provided the strategic guidance, make sure these materials were what our recruiters needed and what our prospects were looking for so that we could continue to attract new students to Missouri Western. So I just wanted to give them a shout out and thank them for all of their time, all of the hours, all of the last minute revisions and changes that were required to create these printed pieces. We also welcomed 2 new employees to the marketing team, actually since the last board meeting. Elliot Swope joined our team. He was actually working in technical services before. And what he brings to us are some considerable talents in the areas of video production. And I will share one of his projects at the end of my presentation. We also said goodbye to Shayna Spooner, and Shayna had transformed our social media presence, and she had built out a strategy, and she really helped raise us to a whole new level as far as on our social media presence for the university, and such a critical place to be right now, and we continue to ramp up those efforts. But we wish her well as she embarks on a new adventure in Wisconsin. I know she will do amazing things there. We were fortunate enough to have Nick McCutcheon join our team in that role. Sorry, Josh. Nick previously served with Griffin Athletics in their marketing communications area. So he not only brings a broad base in marketing and a very, very good and deep understanding of social media, but a breadth and depth of what Missouri Western is and what it is to be a Griffin. So we were very, very fortunate to have him join our team and very excited to welcome him to the team. Speaking of the team, as Lee mentioned, this will be my last Board of Governors meeting, and it is a little bit bittersweet as I literally hit the road in retirement at the end of this month. But I wanted to sincerely thank the Board of Governors and the leadership of the university for the opportunities, leadership, and support that they've given me. I feel very, very fortunate to have worked with such a great team. I feel very, very fortunate to have worked with such great colleagues. And I feel very, very fortunate to have actually been able to be there for the students and serve the students and make a difference. So as I had mentioned, I wanted to share something that Elliot had created. And I think this video that he created really captures why we're here and why we really do make a difference. So before I open up for questions, I wanted to share that video with everyone if you haven't seen it already.
I know this probably sounds cheesy, and a lot of people are going to say the same thing, but I think that's because it's true. If I had to choose one word to describe Missouri Western, I would choose home.
It would definitely be home.
It would definitely be home.
I'd call it a home.
I chose Missouri Western because it felt like home.
It just felt like home.
The professors are super welcoming, all the staff is super welcoming, and it's just a great place to go to school.
The Griffin family has shown me so much love and support without even really knowing me that I just knew it was the right choice.
In one word, I would describe Missouri Western as an opportunity.
My one word to describe Missouri Western is opportunity.
Missouri Western has given me a plethora of amazing opportunities to accomplish new things.
It gives me the opportunity to be part of a small community that I don't think I could get anywhere else.
My one word to describe Missouri Western would have to be future.
Encouraging,
empowering,
welcoming.
I would choose the word support.
They have watched me grow into the young lady I am.
So between your professors, the other staff members, and even just people that are currently at the school, everybody wants to see you succeed. So everybody is more than willing to help you out with whatever you need.
This place is awesome. I wouldn't be who I am without them.
If I had to describe Missouri Western State University in one word, it'd be family.
I love that. I've just watched it over and over again.
Awesome.
Does anyone have any questions?
Everybody's tearing up a little bit behind their masks. So.
I would like to just make one comment. Jomel, you have just led with very professional skills through your time here, and so I've always enjoyed working with you. You've always done a very professional job in whatever you've done.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I have a good team. It makes my job really easy.
And we know we'll still see you, though, around in it.
I'll have more time on my hands.
Exactly.
So I can come up for events and hopefully sporting events at some point, to have lunch, eat on campus. So
Right, we know you still bleed black and gold. So.
exactly, forever a Griffin. So
thank you for all your
much.
service. All right, now for the financial planning and administration report, Daryl Morrison.
Good afternoon, everyone. You have my report in your folder, of course, non-financial and financial. If I could take just a couple of moments and just highlight a few things for you from my report from the various areas in my supervision. First of all, I'd like to address parking on campus. We made a change to our parking policy this year. It has been mixed reviews, I guess. Students absolutely love it. So that's a good thing. We're hearing nothing but positive things from the students. Faculty and staff's a little challenging because it's different, but we've opened things up, and so students are really happy to do that. We've had some computer glitches, no doubt about it, about the payment and stuff with some of our systems. But we're working on that. It's gone well, and we're looking for a more organized and secure campus by doing this, by requiring everyone to register vehicles on campus. So kudos to the police department for leading that. Technology services area, it's been quite a challenging few months as we have moved a lot of our classes from the face-to-face environment, trying to prepare and get things up and running and ready for the fall semester. Dr. Davenport touched on some of these things, but the technology services staff, they've been outstanding, working a lot of hours, doing a lot of things, trying to make sure that our students have the best experiences possible in an online environment and in a face-to-face environment. I would piggyback on that by saying we practiced in our with our COVID guidelines that we have as a campus. Not only do we get to wear these great looking masks around, right? We also practice social distancing in the classrooms. The physical plant, Brian Atkins and his team have worked tirelessly on this to secure the classroom spacing that we need, COVID capacities in rooms. We put up signs working with Jomel and her team. And so we feel like we've got a safest environment. We all know that the rules change on this from day to day, but right now we like where we're at and what we're trying to do. And Dr. Harris is now, and I'm sure Dr. Kennedy will address that some more, but Dr. Harris is doing some work, and along with Sarah, who's done some fabulous work for us, many others. Also, our grounds crew has, with all the rain we've had this summer, they've had quite the challenge keeping the grass mowed and everything taken care of. I issued a challenge to them and their supervisors to make our campus look a little nicer, and I think they're responding well, and I want to give them a shout out for their hard work and what they're doing. With the start of the semester, of course, HR is booming. We're down some staff in that area at this point in time. We've got a lot of new processes that we're working through in HR, but with all the onboarding and things that are going on, we're moving ahead. So I just want to give a shout out to them as well. And of course, the financial piece of this with budget, purchasing, accounting, all of those things. We're currently preparing for an audit. The auditors will be here within the next couple of weeks to begin looking at our documents and things like that, doing some field work. We are still working, of course, on adjustments and the normal year-end closing entries that need to be made to the financial statements. But everyone's working extremely hard. We are short-staffed in some areas, but as I said, we are moving forward and feel pretty comfortable with where we are on a lot of things. Any questions on that report? So now let's look at some numbers, right? You have in your packet the actual individual reports, and I've just put together a quick PowerPoint for presentation this afternoon to bring you up to date. So if I can go. Here we go. This is budget to actual comparison. This is university-wide. Oh, sorry, everyone. This is university-wide where we're at. As you can see, our operating revenues, we wound up $500,000 down, or excuse me, above what we were expecting on our latest revised budget. So that's, we came in a little higher. And I might say that one of the reasons we came in higher on our student tuition and fee, and that's primarily where it's at, is because of our summer classes. We switched to face-to-face, but we had a larger than expected summer class. Not quite to what it was in prior years, but higher than what we had budgeted for that time. The expenses, as you can see, we have certainly trimmed our expenses from where we were. It's been very painful to do some of the things that we've had to do, but we are moving forward with those things. Non-operating revenues, you see state appropriations hit exactly as we revised budget says, because when we revised the budget in May, we took out $2.2 million of state funding, so that's why that hit that number. But overall, as we look at the bottom line for the university, we're sitting right now at a plus 4.7. That's without depreciation. We don't want to get into all those things and net positions and things like that, but just from an operating standpoint, without some adjustments, which we were projecting at 2.4. Now, part of that, I must tell you, is because of some of the actions that we took, even during the pandemic, that is still going on, with some layoffs and some furloughs and some cost-cutting measures. And so we feel pretty good with where we're at this point in time. These are, as I indicate on the slide, they are the unaudited, unadjusted numbers, so we're still taking care of those things.
Can you go back to like the first slide?
The very first one?
Well, yeah, I was trying to do it on my phone.
I'm sorry.
Well, I was looking at the difference total over there, and I was comparing it to my book.
Yes.
And I'm trying to understand this. Mine says a 942,639 positive difference, and you have a negative difference of 524,875.
It may be a typo on me.
I think
it may be a typo on my.
Okay. It's just, this looks right. The 942 looks
The book
right.
the book is correct.
Okay.
297.
Okay, that number didn't look right.
Yeah, we inverted the number when we carried it down.
Okay, I just want to make sure I
No,
wouldn't
you're
double.
Right. You're right.
So what does that ultimately
positive.
mean then? Why don't
It's
you?
a 942 positive. I'm sorry.
What you said there then, if you could clarify that, what that actually means then.
Yes. That's a 942 positive, not a 524 negative as reflected
on the
on
operating
slide.
revenue.
What is in the book is correct.
Right.
Thank you, Dave.
So I've got a couple other, while we're on these slides.
Sure.
Of the $4.7 million actual excess, I'll call it.
Yes.
Which there are no non-cash items in this at all.
There are no
right?
non-cash
This is basically
items.
a cash
That's correct.
reflection, correct?
That's correct.
Is the $2.5 million from the foundation is in this number?
It is in that.
It isn't.
Yes.
So I want
It's
to,
yes.
or somewhere around about 2.5, wasn't it?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So I just want a point of clarification that was not actually a loan, correct? That was
That is
actually
correct.
That's a gift.
That's a gift.
Okay. Because I think in your memo, you mentioned a bridge loan, and I went back and I could figure that the foundation money was in here and it wasn't treated as a loan here. So I figured,
Right.
I just want a point of clarification that that's right.
That's correct.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
No, Governor Lichty, I was going to address that in my.
Okay,
report,
okay.
so-
I just want to make sure. I
preempted
just,
me.
because I was reading it that way, but I wasn't sure.
That's correct. It's included in the grants.
Okay, okay. I
Yes,
just want to
sir.
make sure I knew
Yes.
what I was looking at.
That is correct. There's 2.5 in that bottom 4.7.
So it's not expected to be repaid back?
No,
Right.
no, absolutely not.
Okay.
And it was for items that were, that met the donor purpose.
Correct,
That was
correct.
part of
That's
it.
what I had
That's
heard,
correct.
yes.
Yes. Okay. The next slide that you'll have in your packet is just showing cash and investments, and just wanted to show you the uptick in this. Really is the only reason to show this. This also is in your packet, some of the things with the unrestricted cash and the restricted cash, but we'll see 9.7 in 19, 12.6 at 6:30. Yes, there's a slight change right there. That's showing 8696 in the book is the operating
Okay,
piece of it.
because
Yes.
the 930, the
That's
9
correct.
or the 63019 number in the book showed 9 million,
Yeah,
and it's really 9.7 million.
that's correct.
So then I have a question about that. Then our cash shows that it went up about 2.7 million.
That's correct.
Why would that not correspond to the 4.7 million that we're showing over here?
It could be various reasons. Could be payables booked. It could be receivable. It could be payables and receivables.
So
are
this
on
is
accrual.
not this is
This
not
is
cash?
true cash. This is a cash, but it's on accrued basis. It's an accrued basis as opposed to a cash basis.
So this is not cash. This is accrual.
This is accrual. The
Okay,
financial
that's what I'm
statements
trying to
are on
understand.
accrual basis. This is just simply cash.
I understand. Okay, now I get it. That's why I was asking
Yes,
if this was
yes.
straight cash or not.
No,
That this is
no,
accrual.
I understand what
Okay,
you're saying
okay.
now. Yes.
So it's got to be receivables. Probably.
And I was thinking, when you asked if it was cash or non-cash, Dave, what I was
Yeah,
thinking.
no, I get it. I get
What
it.
I was thinking was, does it take into account non-cash
I
such
get it.
as depreciation and things like that? So
Okay.
that's my,
So our
my
net
bad.
position went up almost 5 million or 4.8.
Yep,
Our cash has only went up from about 2.7,
that's
rounding, or
correct.
2 or around, I guess, 3.
3, yeah,
Yeah.
roughly.
Okay. So there's still 1.7 million to the positive
That's
that's going to
correct.
come in, I would say.
Yes,
based
correct.
on this,
That's
that
correct.
we don't reflect in these numbers yet.
That's
Is that right?
correct. That we should have picked up probably in July.
That's what I'm asking, right? Okay.
That's correct.
So that's a positive.
Which would help, which would help.
Right.
And really the big issue, even on the accrual basis, we're going from 2.4 to 4.7 positive. So that's really.
Right.
a major
That's why
swing.
I'm asking the
That's
question.
right. You're absolutely right, Dave. That's
Okay.
okay. And this just shows the dip and then a graph form to show we kind of turned the corner. Of course, as Governor Lickby pointed out, 2.6, 2.5 influx from the foundation will help you do that. However, even with that, considering we were expecting to be at some point around 6 million at that time of year, that's really some good things, okay? Any questions on that? On 20, we'll have more coming up on 20, as you know, as we go through and get the audit completed. We'll have a finance committee meeting with a new structure and all those things, and we'll get those things nailed down. I would like to touch just briefly, if I could, on fiscal year 21 and the enrollment number or tuition number. As Dr. Davenport reported earlier, our student semester credit hours are good. They're strong in comparison to what we budgeted. They're still down from prior years, okay? But we budgeted, as you may recall, 87.5% of prior year for this year, not knowing what the impact would be. So with that being said, we're right around budget, slightly ahead on the budgeted revenue numbers. The housing revenue, we are below the budgeted amount because we were really strong and our numbers even got up into the low 90s at one time in our housing. But we've had a lot of cancellations, no-shows, things like that. We're running right now around the low 80s. And in that, we again budgeted those at 87.5%. So we're dealing with that, and we'll be looking at ways to match revenues and expenses on that as we move forward. I also know that there's a lot of information out there about federal funds and state funds for COVID relief. And I wanted to give you just a couple of things. From the federal level, there are 3 separate grants that are available to the universities. The federal total is $3.9 million, but $1.8 million of that was simply a pass-through to our students that we awarded several months back. You may recall that. There's an additional 1.8 of institutional aid that will help replace some lost revenues, meets certain criteria, of course, some lost revenues, and for COVID-related expenses. That's a reimbursable. So you expend the money and then ask for reimbursement. So there's 1.8 there. As of today, we've only received 693,000 of that money, and we are working on another drawdown for those funds as we speak. We also applied for a smaller grant for the federal government, 184,000, that again is reimbursable for COVID-related expenses. The governor has released various things for higher education as part of the money he received. There are 3 different pots of it. It all totals $2.6 million. One is a gear fund. It's for educational remote learning, things like that. There's response and reopen. They've got it coded in different ways. The issue with the state funds, they changed the deadline for having them expended. And so we have to expend it and have it reimbursed by November the 10th as a new deadline. That sounds good, except for the fact that that's a quick turnaround because they did not waive all the bid laws and all the other things that you have to go through in the state. And those things have certain days and takes a certain amount of time in order to get to the bottom of those and make those things happen. So we'll be working on that. We hope to utilize some of these funds to fix some of the infrastructure that we have broken on campus that tie directly to COVID funds. One of the things is air handlers, things like that. One of the reasons we're meeting in this room today because of HVAC issues, and those funds can be used for that. So I wanted to point that out to you because as we move forward and develop a plan on exactly what to use the funds for, you may be called to do board polls in order to keep these things moving. So I just wanted to kind of point that out to you. These things are great, and we had a roundtable discussion up at Maryville on the 3rd of August with the governor and some of the staff here, and Dr. Kennedy, and with Dr. Jasinski and some of his staff with the governor to discuss COVID funds and the state portion and what we could do. One of the things that I impressed upon the governor is COVID funds are fine, and we appreciate those, but really, there are too many restrictions on a lot of the funds because everything is tied to COVID. It's not helping with normal day-to-day operations of a university. And so he was looking back through and having staff to see if we couldn't release some of those funds. The other thing, just looking ahead a little bit, not only on this, but as we look at our enrollment, how we finalize and where we land, we understand that we still have a budgeted deficit on this campus. We went into this year with a budgeted deficit. So we're looking to fill that hole over time of doing it. We do have some additional funds that the foundation has committed to us that will more than cover the budgeted deficit that we have. But we have to tighten our belt and figure out and make moves so that we can stand on our own 2 feet moving forward without those funds, because that's one-time money. And so I know Dr. Kennedy and I have been discussing it as I spoke with President Wilson prior, and we're committed to doing that, and we're looking at ways to make that happen so we'll have the balanced budget for FY22. Questions?
Anyone have any questions? I know just as far as background, we've seen these reports and have asked a lot of questions, certainly in pre-board meetings too, of trying to get up to speed. And we appreciate you, Daryl, filling in the blanks and taking some, talking about it technically where that's necessary, but also making it understandable to us as well, and appreciate that transparency that we are striving to continue going forward. If there are no other questions, we have a motion to approve the June 30th, 2020 financial report as presented. Is there a motion?
So,
Okay. Moved by Governor Landis. Do we have a second?
second.
Seconded by Governor Mason. Is there any other discussion on the financial report as presented? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve the financial report, please say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. The motion is passed and approved as to the June 30th, 2020 financial report as presented.
One other item, there's a contract for Potter Hall and Fulkerson Center air unit replacements. I've tried to provide additional information in your board packet from what we've had previously in this in order to hopefully answer any questions, concerns that you have about the project summary and things like that. The bottom line here is that there's a purchasing contract approved through the state of Missouri that allows us to purchase equipment without bid. And so that's what we've done, okay? These are the type of units and things that we have in other places on campus. Prior experience has taught us that they have been the lower bid and the lower price on that. What we did not have, though, was the installation piece of it. So we did bid that information out. It is presented on the second page of this with the projected labor cost. So we bid that out, lumped it in together as the company we have recommending will oversee the installation and cover all the engineering and fees and things like that associated with that. So I recommend that we would make a recommendation to you to accept the quote for the Fulkerson Center and Potter Hall in the amounts of $132,066 and $239,373 respectively. We'll take any questions about this project.
Are you lumping that together with the
Yes.
labor costs? I mean, so if any questions on both, are you presenting those?
Yeah.
Are you wanting those to be presented as separate motions or an all
No,
inclusive?
the total amount there is $408,000 for everything all in all. So if we can do it all together, that'd be fine.
And one thing that I'd point out that is kind of a starting place that I look at when we have bids for a project is when staff recommends the lowest bid that's presented. I tend to ask fewer questions.
Sure.
When you're recommending a bid that is not the lowest bid, ask a few more. And so as to the labor, you could just kind of explain that having the group that you are recommending do both of them
Right.
is where the project savings comes in.
Well, the project savings going with the P1 group, which is what we're recommending here, their number, there's just overall savings with doing it. It's economies, quite honestly, with being on campus at the same time. We bid them out separately and together, and they had options on those type things. One of the groups that did not even bid, they bid on the first one and then just kind of walked away and did a no submit on the other one because they just didn't think they had the manpower to take care of it.
We're getting that savings basically on the mobilization, demobilization,
Yes,
things
that
of
is
that
correct.
nature.
That is correct.
So overall, what you are recommending is the lowest
The
cost
lowest cost.
for both those
For
projects.
both altogether, that is correct. That is what we are recommending. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments from the board as to these projects?
I have a question, Lee. Am I behind you?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. So Daryl, the total amount is $408,582.90, and it comes from university plant funds.
Yes.
What is our total amount available in university plant funds in our budget? And is obviously, is this an unexpected expense?
It was, a portion of it was expected, and we built in and adjusted for it. Debbie and I'll look back here at our plant fund. We had 250 budgeted at this time. So it's 100 and something out of that, based on that budget.
And now we have Blum Union AC out.
Yes, I mean, I'm not sure what it's going to take to fix it at this point in time.
For clarification, when you say that comes from the university plant funds, is that a line item within the overall budget that you presented, or is this
yes,
separate?
Plant funds are included in the overall budget that I've been presenting to the board. Yes.
Was that section E?
If you look on page, in attachment 2, there's a plant fund budget. Or attachment 3, there's a plant fund budget for that. And if you look at the comparison of budget to actual, probably be page 51. My glasses on, sorry. 51 in your book.
What page are we looking at, or where is that?
Page 51 in your book.
Page 51 in the board book. Attachment 3. Those are the plant fund. You look at the revised budget, and you can see what we've done. And what will happen realistically is we will transfer from our operating funds to our plant fund in order to cover this, because there were no plant funds previously.
Daryl, the recommended low bidder, if they're awarded the contract, what's their schedule?
We think they will get started early September. That's what we've got. Really, the goal here was to try to get them in faster, but now the goal has shifted with everything going on, so to make sure we've got heat and cooling that will take us through the winter.
What's the expected duration for completion?
Usually 2 to 3 weeks on something like this. Just depends on how many men they send out, and they, you know.
You know, in the past few meetings that we've had, when it comes to the infrastructure and where we're at with everything, do you believe that we have now done an adequate analysis to where, not that things can't break or whatever, that we are fully anticipating what it's going to take for us to maintain things, and it's reflected in the budget?
We have an adequate analysis, Governor Landis. What we don't have is the funding for it to get it. We have an analysis, and we are estimating various things. I'll give you an example. Some of you were here. We did a recent roof job on Blum about a year ago. We only did part of it. We didn't do the whole roof. So now, the room where we normally meet for this meeting, where this body normally meets, if it were raining outside, we would have, we have some nice 5-gallon buckets that we sit around because we didn't do that. So we have a lot of needs like that. We have an analysis. I'm trying to develop a plan. Certainly having an excess of $1.7 million goes a long way in doing that. That is also why my plan is to present to Dr. Kennedy, the cabinet, and work through this with the board, a plan to use some of this COVID relief money for infrastructure where we can, because it is the best thing that I think we can do.
Okay.
With those funds. And so we're trying to be very frugal with how we expend it. We want all the COVID, the cleaning, the separating, spend all the money that we need to get the learning systems in place for our students. But at the same time, we can use some of the state funds, for instance, on air handlers, which will change us from a MERV 8 filter to a MERV 13, which better filtration systems for our campus. And that's our goal, is to look at doing some of the things like that, which also gives us a renewed life, because we've got things that are 40, 50 years old, and now we've just converted it to a 30-year thing. So it puts us in a good place longer term. With some of our other needs, it does not help so much. Paving, things like that, that's non-COVID related. Okay. Other question?
Hearing no other questions, call for is there a motion to approve the Potter Hall and Fulkerson Center air unit replacements, the contracts as presented by?
I'll make that motion, Lee.
We have a motion by Governor Smith. A second?
I'll second.
We have a second from Governor Schoonover. Is there any other discussion on this topic? Hearing none, call for the vote. All those in favor of approving the motion to replace the air unit at Potter Hall and Fulkerson Center as presented, please say aye.
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 Those opposed, say nay. Hearing none, the motion passes as presented.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have anything else, Mr. Morrison? Okay, thank you. Now, Governor Barry, do you have a presentation for us?
Sure do.
Great.
Well, as everybody knows, school started this week, and it's been a quick 4 days already for students. My written report can be found on page 57, just addresses the sentiments of students throughout the summer and transitioning to school during a unique semester situation. Overall, I think students are excited to be back. That's the sentiment that I've received from peers and fellow classmates. It is definitely different for faculty and students, but it's a sense of normalcy that, normalcy and structure that many of my peers have been lacking this summer. And with the truncated semester in the spring as well. Just kind of address that students and faculty, especially SJ, are committed to flexibility this semester, and I have already seen that in my own personal courses. Professors are more than willing to work with students, whether it's based off of health concerns or different needs that they may have throughout the semester or that could emerge as well. SJ has had several meetings to get ready for the start of the school year, and we are working together to create an avenue for individual students to express their questions, concerns, and recommendations. Right now, we have a lot of structure in place for student organizations to have a voice on campus, but I think we could do better supporting the individual. It's going to be a reactionary semester, I think. We're trying to work best to listen to what students need and not what we need or want for students, because there's a diverse need this semester and it could change, like COVID measures every other day, what students are going to need. That is the summary of my sentiments in my report. I would also like to note, just for Vice President Davenport, that the bookstore is awesome, and many students were really excited to utilize that this week and continue to going forward.
Have any questions for Governor Berry?
Hannah, this is Debbie. So are you taking all of your classes in person, or are you doing a kind of a combination of in person and virtual?
For myself, I am
Yes.
in 18 credit hours, and I have in class on Monday and Wednesdays, and Tuesday, Thursday, I have online courses. And even some of my professors have suggested attendance is however you can attend the course this semester, do it as best for you and your health and those who you live with. So I have a blended schedule this semester, as I would say most of my peers do as well.
18 hours is a lot to take on.
Any other questions?
Did you hear any griping from other students about having to wear masks or socially distance, or does everybody pretty much understand the need for it?
4 days of classes, and I have classes in 3 different buildings, and I've had mostly positive and neutral responses. I think that students are committed to the same agenda as faculty and staff are, that safety is a priority, and that we don't really know what everybody else could have going on as far as health concerns or familial health concerns. I haven't heard any negative so far, other than, maybe sometimes it's hard to breathe, but it's not a nuisance that students are aggressive about in any manner.
That's good. That's good to know. Thank you, Hannah.
I would just say that on behalf of all the students, it's nice to see you here. When I came over for a meeting Monday morning with Dr. Kennedy and Daryl Morrison, for some thinking about what the meeting is, and kind of running thoughts through my head and some of the issues associated with that. And as soon as I pulled onto campus and saw cars in the parking lots and students walking around, albeit a little differently, I couldn't recognize very many people, but just seeing that they were certainly younger than me and were students that just instantaneously gave energy to this outsider coming onto campus and seeing that. So you all are our lifeblood. You are why we do what we do. You are why we're here, and certainly glad you're here. But it's also encouraging to hear the seriousness that your peers are taking with this. And we're hearing, from the media, horror stories of social events and things like that. And I'm not here to cast stones in that regard, but it is nice to hear at least the seriousness generally that's being taken with that and the understanding. So thank you to you personally for your leadership, but to your peers. Anyone else? Thank you. Dr. Kennedy, we get to hear from you now for your maiden voyage.
So to speak. Well, thank you, Chair Tiemann, and thank you to the entire Board of Governors. As I've mentioned, I've been very honored to have been given the opportunity to serve Missouri Western State University as the interim president. I'm very deeply grateful for the confidence that you've expressed in me to fulfill these duties. I also want to say thank you to everyone in the Missouri Western community, staff, administrators, faculty, who have congratulated me, given me support, stood behind me. It's made me feel very confident in this position, and I just want to say I am incredibly proud to be part of this Griffin family, and I'm looking forward to our academic year, particularly since the challenges that we have faced in the past year would have been unimaginable only a year ago. And we have faced many difficult situations and made many tough and in many cases very painful decisions in order to make sure that Missouri Western State University is well positioned for future success. But let me just say, as arduous as this year has been, our undeterred efforts have laid a foundation in which the university will not only survive, but will thrive as an educational institution of the highest caliber. Missouri Western is moving forward, stronger and with sure purpose. And I think that's a message we all need to keep in our minds as we go through our year. So that said, let me provide some points of information to you and some notable highlights. We've heard bits and pieces about the Missouri Western State COVID-19 response plan, and I have to give credit to President Wilson for his leadership, as well as all members of the cabinet and other campus constituencies who really worked hard to get this plan up, developed, and implemented. Many thanks to those who are continuing their efforts to make sure we are moving forward. As you might imagine, the deluge of daily information about changes in our understanding of the disease and how best to monitor it require our constant diligence, and I really am grateful for those who do that. As we are now starting the campus and moving forward, we're moving into more of a monitoring situation for the virus, and I'm very pleased to report that Dr. Crystal Harris, who is our Dean of the College of Health and Sciences and is also an infectious disease specialist, has agreed to serve as the university's COVID-19 coordinator. She will also be working with Dr. Gary Clapp and Dr. Michael Grantham, who will assist her in data monitoring for our campus situation. At this time, we have also engaged several individuals from campus who will be serving as our contact tracers as necessary. They are either finished their training or undergoing that right now. We also are participating in weekly information Zoom meetings through the Missouri Department of Higher Education and Workforce Development about COVID-19. Many of those are very helpful. They contain experts who are sharing advice, give us opportunity to connect with other university and campus leaders so that we can stay informed and up to date. And then finally, I was very happy to hear what Hannah had to say about the students' response, because I will say my walks around campus this first week have revealed students who are complying, who are paying attention, to our own staff, faculty, administrators who are helping make sure that our recommendations are followed. And we have begun rather a series of what I call PSAs, public service announcements, where we're messaging about how to wear a mask, how to stay socially distanced, and reminding people. Because our ability to manage and mitigate the risk of this disease really depends on how well we take the measures that are required. So we're engaging in that. Some other things we've heard a little bit about the academic year beginnings. If we look at the fall enrollment, we do know that both our headcount and our student credit hours are down by 10%. Despite these grim numbers, as has been pointed out, there is some slivers of a silver lining to observe, if you will. While the overall impact in both counts is down, okay, we aren't as down as some of our sister institutions. Most of those, as my conversations have revealed, are in the double digits. In fact, our current enrollment is still above the decline that we've projected, as Vice President Morrison remarked to us. And we do have some efforts in terms of lower declines in ranks amongst returning seniors and juniors. And in addition to Provost Davenport, I would also like to lend my thanks to everyone who participated in our retention efforts. The one piece that wasn't managed, we did have a late in-person registration date in early August. We went the 4th, 5th, and 6th, where we had folks coming to campus, socially distanced, appropriately masked, and that led to an increase of an additional 75 students to our campus. So we're beginning to engage in efforts that will help increase our recruitment, our retention, and our enrollments. We also began the semester with our employee kickoff and our plan week activities. We brought students back to campus. Our teams on campus worked around the clock to ensure that what we were going to do to start off the semester created or took into account our need for social distancing and safety measures. One of the things we've really tried to do this semester is ensure that we are socially distanced but not socially isolated. So we have that collegiate experience as much as possible for our students, for our faculty, and our staff. I also was very happy and had a lot of fun. I participated as a Griffin greeter for some of our freshmen who are moving into the dorms, and that was a very good experience. Just briefly, in terms of some 2021 academic initiatives, I've charged the provost and asked that he provide oversight for 2 instrumentally strategic academic initiatives. One of these is to develop an academic master plan, and the other one is to develop an academic program review process. We'll be sharing more with these, and I have had some initial conversations with the Faculty Senate, but I did want to announce this because these will be underway this year. I've requested that a representative team be assembled, and this is the important part, that the plan formations that the processes be deliberative and consultant, seek input from both academic and non-academic units, provide multiple opportunities for feedback across all constituencies, incorporate our governance structures, and include a timeline of completion. Okay? So those are the 2 things, and we'll meeting with Faculty Senate after this, and I'll be providing that to you. In terms of campus initiatives, per the board's request, I've been tasked with staying the course and providing a sense of stability and clear direction and implementation of initiatives created in the previous year. With that in mind, I wanted to highlight just a couple of things. We've heard talk about the Center for Workforce Development that is underway, and I'm happy to say that we are currently offering 3 free courses which focus on creativity and innovation. If an individual completes those 3 courses and then takes a 4th course, he or she will receive a certificate in innovations and teams organizations. In our Center for Service, Dr. Gary Clapp officially began his service as of August 1st. As you know, this is the vehicle through which our students and our greater community connect, and we're very proud of that. For example, we have 19 local community service learning partnerships and another 10 in the works. This summer, we had 6 students who beta tested the system, who performed virtual community service learning projects for the American Red Cross. So that is well underway and going very well. And then finally, our Center for Entrepreneurship was awarded a very prestigious Heartland Challenge Grant, which is offered through the Kauffman Foundation. The grant totaled $73,500 and will help develop a regional economic vitality consortium, which will expand entrepreneurship education across a 23-county region in Northeast Kansas and Northwest Missouri. Finally, I have been committed to increasing our engagement and relationships with our greater community. I am working to connect the university with other entities. So some of those activities, as mentioned, we attended the Governor Parsons Roundtable event on COVID at Northwest Missouri State. There's nothing like having your first day of work include the governor. I'm also involved in biweekly local community conference calls on the COVID situation. Those conference calls involve the mayor, the St. Joseph School District, the health department, Mosaic, the chamber, and the St. Joseph Police Department. And then finally, I'll just conclude briefly about our financial situation. As we heard from Vice President Morrison, and as the board is aware, the university remains in a state of financial emergency. However, we are doing our best and working hard to maintain a position of careful, responsible budgeting across all units. And as I mentioned earlier to Dave Lickby, I do want to correct my report in that I referred to the bridge loan when it is in fact just a bridge. There's no repayment expected. But nonetheless, we are still dealing with financial stress, but we will be working hard to address those issues moving forward. I'm happy to take any questions. If you...
Any questions about any of the specific proposals and updates from Dr. Kennedy, or anything in general that hasn't already been addressed by the board members? Hey, thank you.
Lee, I just had the question, which was at the very beginning of our board meeting. I asked it of Dr. Davenport about the oh gosh, my mind just went blank. The workforce development courses. If somebody could let us know how that is panning out.
Yes, we'll get that information for you.
Thank you.
Oh, you haven't? Okay. Yes, please
Sure,
do.
go ahead, Dr. Davenport. Come on up.
So I reached out to Annette Weeks and Minerva Torres in order to answer the question, and they quickly provided response. And we have had a total of 55 individuals who have participated already. 7 have already completed classes, and so we're seeing a lot of individuals already begin to take part in this.
Thank you so much.
Anything else for Dr. Kennedy? All right, well then we will move on to our other business. The first of which is the naming of the new simulation lab. We have, come on up.
Good afternoon. I'm Crystal Harris. Thank you for allowing me to come and present this special request today. In July of 2019, we received the MoExcels grant through the Missouri Department of Higher Ed. And we received $557,744. In that requirement, it required matching dollars. And we had strong community support from Mosaic Life Care, Mosaic Life Care Auxiliary, Mosaic Life Care Foundation, and our own Missouri Western State University Foundation, which provided the matching funds to make this possible. Through our proposal and our initiative, we created the Center for Excellence in Applied Healthcare Learning, which helped us expand our classroom sizes, simulation labs, enhance our technology, and really expand our capacity to meet our regional workforce development needs. The simulation lab located in Murphy 101 is now complete, and the lab is ready for, it is currently being used by our own students, and it's also ready for community use to provide education and workforce development. As an example, Mosaic Life Care has scheduled and completed 17 classes from late spring through this summer. And we have also had visitors from St. Joseph Youth Alliance who had CNA students come and use the lab, and they were able to practice with that enhanced technology. So it was very exciting for them. In addition, we were able to talk with them about our current programs so that they could do some career planning. So it has been a wonderful addition to our campus, and we're very grateful for the opportunities that are allowed us. The Mosaic Life Care Auxiliary gave its largest contribution ever, $200,000 towards the match, and it's our desire to recognize their gift and their generosity. In compliance with our own naming policy and in recognition of the Mosaic Life Care Auxiliary's donation, I would like to request that the Board of Governors approve naming the new lab the Mosaic Life Care Auxiliary Community Lab. Do you have any questions for me?
Just for a little bit more background on that, of when with the MoExcel grants, I mean, a credit to to your team and to all those involved in making that request, because there were a lot of requests throughout the state that were not granted. And my recollection is we were actually one of the larger ones within that. So that is a lot of credit to go on pursuing that, on identifying a need, an area of strength of ours, and then to make that happen. So that is that's a fantastic accomplishment, and a lot of credit goes to a lot of people for that. And thank you very much.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the naming of the new lab, the Mosaic Life Care Auxiliary Community Lab.
We have a motion by Governor Lickby. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Second from Governor Landis. Any other discussion about the renaming, or the naming, not renaming, but naming? Hearing none, all of those in favor of the motion to approve the naming of the simulation lab at Murphy Hall to be known on a going forward basis as the Mosaic Life Care Auxiliary Community Lab, please say aye.
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 Those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is passed and shall now be known as the Mosaic Life Care Auxiliary Community Lab. Thank you very much, Dr. Harris.
Thank you.
We also have is a bit of maybe housekeeping things that we need to do as a board, is the adoption of our ethics resolution, and University Counsel Sarah Cravens is going to bring us up to speed on this.
So this is a piece of business that comes before the board every other year, so it may be familiar to some of you. So you simply have to adopt this, this policy every other year in order to continue to fill out the same short form conflict of interest form that you are accustomed to filling out. It may not seem like it's a short form. It may seem lengthy and cumbersome to you, but that is the short form version. So, so this is the same version that you have passed in the past. This is our same policy. There are no changes in this. I'm happy to answer questions about it or talk about what the pieces are in it if you have any questions. But since it is the same policy and you've had it before you, I won't talk about it further unless you need me to.
Are there any questions? I think it's pretty self-explanatory, and we appreciate you, Sarah, keeping us in compliance and up to speed with our responsibilities there. We have a motion, or I request a motion to readopt the conflict of interest ordinance and ethics resolution as presented in your board book.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion by Governor Smith. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Governor Schoonover. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of readopting the conflict of interest ordinance and ethics resolution, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. The motion to readopt the conflicts of interest ordinance and ethics resolution is passed as presented. Thank you, Sarah. Our next item of business would be a report from the chair, and just a few things with that. As we are in our transition period, the question comes up now and again, and it's appropriate of what the board is doing as to any presidential search or what our plans are in that regard. And with the new school year starting, our focus has certainly, and I believe appropriately, been on focusing on students and getting the school year going, and that is where our efforts and energy have been. Going hand in glove with that is the tremendous initial job that Dr. Kennedy has done in stepping in and providing us with stability and her leadership with that. We're very pleased of where we are at in that process of her serving as our interim president, and certainly her leadership has validated the confidence that we had in her to step into that position. We will give updates as we move forward in the process with that of selecting and naming our next president of the university, but just wanted to at least make a public acknowledgement of where we are at, in that process. The most important decision that this board makes is the hiring of our president. That is not taken lightly. That is what will consume a lot of our energy, a lot of our focus, because we put our energy on the front side, and then whomever we select to do that, it's not our job to micromanage or to try to be a pseudo president. We want to then allow the president to follow through with his or her initiatives and leadership with that. So that's where we are in that regard. We are incredibly confident and comfortable with the leadership we have right now as we're moving forward. As a follow-up to prior meetings that we have established some standing committees for the board that previously did not exist. Sarah has spent a lot of effort with that in establishing the parameters of those committees, and we have new bylaws that we have already adopted. As part of that, it is the chair's responsibility to populate those committees, and we have a tremendous board now, but we want to get these committees going to dig into maybe more of the meat of various issues and perform some different tasks like that, so we can streamline our board meetings with that, and think that goes very well within our obligation of oversight here. The committees that have been established, we have the Academic and Student Engagement Committee, and I have already talked to all of the governors about committees that I thought would be good fits for them, and we'd like their expertise and input that they can have. And so that part is not going to be a surprise to anyone, and I very much appreciate the commitment and willingness of this board to everyone that was asked to do something willingly accepted that request, and that's just a great testament to the quality that we have on this board, and I very much appreciate that. Some of the it took me a little longer to figure out that I was also to name the chair of these committees and some of the non-board members, because the board members are going to be the voting members of these committees. The committees cannot take independent action. That still has to come to the board, but they will take votes to recommend things. And so one person, this may still come to a surprise to, that I didn't get to talk to of some of those things, but in just trying to place all of that together, within the Academic and Student Engagement Committee, that is going to be made up of Kayla and Rick and Debbie and Hannah on that. That will also have Dr. Davenport being the administration representative on that committee. We can add additional non-voting members to that, or bring in ones if there are specific tasks with that. But that is the committee, the Academic and Student Engagement Committee, and Kayla has agreed to chair that committee, so I very much appreciate that. The Personnel, Finance, and Operations Committee is going to be made up of Al, Dave, and Greg will be on that committee, with Daryl Morrison being the cabinet representative with that committee. And Governor Landis has agreed to be the chair of that committee. I think he's agreed. If I didn't, he's agreeing right now if I didn't ask before.
Well,
but-
you're probably wondering whether I'm smiling or frowning.
Well,
Right now.
I am
I'm smiling.
Schrodinger's cat. I'm assuming it's a smile until proven differently.
Just
so.
do this or this.
I can't see so good out of that eye, so I assume it's all good. I know everyone has been gracious and helps out in so many places, but Governor Landis is at the top of the list of offering help with that, and so I know everyone will do a good job, but he certainly will. The other committee, standing committee, is the Policy and Bylaws Committee, and that will be Debbie, Rick, and Kayla, with Betsy serving on that committee in the non-voting capacity, but also on that committee. And that's the one that Debbie, I meant to get to you sooner, and it just didn't quite work out, but I would request that you chair that committee if you are so willing.
Yes, I'm willing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, the ad hoc committee is not there. We're not doing anything with that at this point in time, but what I would charge the committees to do then is to communicate and establish when your meetings are going to be. With the Personnel, Financing, and Operations Committee, my desire would be that would meet in the month in between board meetings, so that you can be able to present a report if necessary, or recommendations that you've seen the finances, things of that nature prior to the full board meeting. So if you meet on those interval months, is what my recommendation would be with that. The other two committees meet less frequently, so I'll defer to the groups of deciding when that wants to be, but stagger it, throughout the year with that. I would like the committees to come back with kind of their initial thoughts of areas they would like to look into more, certainly with administration input. I also may be sending down some charges of things I'd like you all to look into more and come back with some recommendations or expand the oversight with that.
I would like to just defer to Daryl on the finance part of the meeting, that we should meet, if we're going to report on, say, June financials in today's meeting, that we have our meeting coordinated with his completion of that. It may be that we're only meeting 10 days prior to our board meeting, as opposed to just every other month, because he may not have time to have everything wrapped up. So we'll want to make sure we're seeing what we're going to be presenting.
Absolutely. No,
So
that's
just,
a
I
good
would
point.
defer to Daryl as to the timing of all that.
My preference would be if we could meet a couple of weeks before the board meeting.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
And that way we could finalize, I could have the materials presented that I have at that time, and we run it through the committee, and then we could make that committee report as part of the overall board packet. That, I think that would give Betsy time then to do that, Lee.
Now, those are all makes
If that's-
absolute
if
sense.
that's
All I
a-
was trying to avoid was I didn't want the finance meeting to be right before the.
No, and I
same day.
understand. The problem is the timing, and we're going to be looking at data that's several weeks old probably by the time we get to the board meeting if we operate like that. That's just my
Very
thought.
good input from both of you. That makes a lot of sense. So, all right.
plan of when these will meet to separate them? I mean, because if we're meeting every other month here as a board, that leaves us 6 other months if we want to meet on opposite ones where we don't want the two committees to meet the same one. We want to stagger it out and make a schedule.
That would be up to you all. I don't, quite honestly, I wouldn't have a problem if those committees, because it's made up of the same people, if they would meet at the same time. That would be just up to the group if you'd want to do that, since they're addressing different subject matter, just because of the finance and operations is just more of an ongoing things. And certainly, we as a board and some of the reasons for this is we're very mindful of our oversight requirement. We have listened to the community and others about things we've dealt with, in recently, and quite frankly, we're trying to reestablish confidence, and that's things that I think are appropriate for us to do and to follow through with that. But I don't know that we need to unless Sarah tells me that's different. I don't know that we need to have a discussion now of when those meetings are going to be set. That's up to the individual committees if you want to talk afterwards or if you want to however. Okay.
Governor Teeman.
What's up?
I have a question. So on the policy and bylaws with myself, Rick, Kayla, and Betsy, wouldn't it be also preferable to have legal counsel on that too?
Yeah, actually, that is in the notes, and I forgot to say that, but you're absolutely
okay.
Yes, Sarah is.
Thank you.
Committee as well. That position is appointed to that committee, and thanks for pointing that. That's why you were chairing that.
No,
I
love policy.
I could hear you but couldn't see you, so I'm going with
That's good.
So, okay. Any other questions, comments about anything I have brought up or bring up that you would like to talk about?
Thank you for getting all that done.
Right, if there are no other questions, comments from the board, at this point in time, a vote will be held to close the meeting pursuant to Missouri Revised Statute, Section 610.021, parentheticals 1, 2, and 3, to consider legal matters, real estate, and personnel. Is there a motion for us to go into closed executive session to discuss those statutory matters?
Second.
We have a motion by Governor Lichty, a second by Governor Ebersol. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. The motion is carried, and we will now move into executive closed session.
I thought you had a standing one, by the way.
Yeah, well,
last
standing
time.
means nothing. Official.
Is there a reason you're not coming? Maybe I ought to ask that question.
No, you just don't invite me.
Okay, we're live.
You need me to come
Wait.
help you something?
We're live. We're live.
Well, I'm going to be a good time.
We're back in public session after having met in executive session, handled the matters appropriate in there, and had a vote to return back to public session. Is there a motion to approve the personnel recommendations as were presented in the executive session?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of approving the personnel recommendations as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. That is approved, and the personnel recommendations as presented are now approved and accepted. There is no other business. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
You're still live for a few more seconds.